for the Advancement of Women. And we are delighted this evening to be hosting Dr. Jana Matthews, who will be speaking. She is terrific. We are deeply honored to have her here. Thank you very much for agreeing to support this enterprise we call ABLE for Women. ABLE for Women is this amazing center for entrepreneurship. At the Women's College, we are dedicated to advancing women, and our mission is to educate women to boldly lead in the communities where they live, where they work, and where they engage. And for those of you who don't know about the Women's College, we're an undergraduate college at the University of Denver. And I'd like to say that our students are amazing women who lead very complex lives. In addition to being undergraduate students here at the University of Denver, they work often full-time and are often raising families or taking care of parents or always in care of someone. And so they navigate, I don't say balance, because as all of you know, on any given day it's not a balance, right? It's a navigation. We navigate those various roles that we play. Mother, aunt, daughter, niece. We navigate as an undergraduate college student, and we also navigate as an employee. And so my students, I think, are biased. I'm biased. The best students at the University of Denver because of who they are and what they do. So it's wonderful to see some students in the room tonight, to have some of our alums here this evening. When we did our strategic planning in 2008, we identified entrepreneurship and assisting women in becoming entrepreneurs as a strategic priority of this college. And we talked to our students about what it means to be entrepreneurial, both inside and outside of corporations, either in their own business or working for a place like TIA Cref or Quest, now CenturyLink. We have to keep up with all these mergers. Also, in starting their own businesses, because in the 21st century, leadership requires entrepreneurial skills. Leadership requires risk-taking. It requires knowing any number of different things, from how to balance the books, to how to be an extraordinary HR person, to how to move a product from conception to reality, how to navigate international markets. All of these things are critical to growing entrepreneurship. And so ABLE for Women exists not only for the students of the Women's College and of the greater University of Denver community, but also for community women, because this college is community focused. All of our students live and work in the Metro Denver area, and so we serve our students and we serve the communities where they live. And ABLE for Women is being led now by Barbara Bauer. Barbara. And we are fortunate to have Barbara's leadership and also the leadership of our advisory board, and also the partnership that we have with Public Service Credit Union. Public Service Credit Union, and I know you've been watching the news, and those of you who follow Twitter and Facebook and the like know that a lot of the Occupy Wall Street folks are saying, move from the banks to the credit unions. Well, there are probably good reasons for that. And certainly this credit union, Public Service Credit Union, has been an extraordinary community citizen. Not only do they sponsor a very significant scholarship here at the Women's College and are often sponsors of events such as this, they also are now working with our athletic program and are over in the Ritchie Center. And so Public Service Credit Union is a partner in our endeavor. And Public Service Credit Union also does an amazing job of sponsoring small business loans. They are approved by the SBA to actually work with small business clients and to get those loans out to grow small businesses. And so I think Public Service Credit Union is a great partner, a great corporate, if you will, citizen, even though they're a nonprofit. And I would want to introduce to you Sarah Collins, who's an Assistant Vice President for Public Service Credit Union, who will give a few words, and then we'll turn it over to the program. So thank you so much for being here at the Women's College and ABLE for Women. And Sarah, welcome.
All right, thank you. Good evening, everyone. Well, I have to say it is an honor to be here representing Public Service Credit Union on such an important day for the ABLE Center and their Global Entrepreneurship Week. I hope that many of you have been able to enjoy some of the other events that occurred this week. I was privileged to also attend the Women's Vision Success Forum a couple weeks ago and see the recipients of the University of Denver Women's College, to see the recipients of the scholarships and hear their stories about what the college is going to bring to their lives that they didn't have before, and in turn how they're going to turn that back around into their own local communities and help our global economy with what they've learned here at the college. So we are a big supporter and love what the Women's College is doing here in our own communities. So Lynn stole a bit of my thunder. We all have hopefully heard about what the consumer advocacy groups are saying about the credit unions. And many of you may have known that Bank Transfer Day was on November the 5th, and we managed to acquire about 40,000 new members. Thank you. But a statistic to me that was really mind-blowing was that in October of this year, nationally, credit unions had over 600,000 individuals join. So I can tell you folks that 600,000 people are not wrong, in that we are a better place to bank and provide financial services and a financial partner for life. So just to talk a little bit about Public Service Credit Union, we've been here in the local community since 1938. We were built out of the Public Service Utilities Company. We have over 28 local branches, but that doesn't include our shared branching network. So there's a common stereotype out there that you can't be a credit union member unless you belong to a certain organization or you work for a certain company, and I'm here to tell you that anyone can be a credit union member, and we would love for you to come be a public service credit union member. We have the convenience of over 160 shared branching networks, 1,000 free ATMs, including a new ATM here right in the Ritchie Center. So if you're a student here, can't get more convenient than being able to come to school and do your banking right here at school. So we certainly would like to encourage everyone to come talk to us. We have a table out front. And we also are going to be advocates for the Women's Business College with our business lending program. So we are partnered with the SBA. We are providing capital opportunities for startup businesses as well as growth opportunities for folks that may not have been in business for 2 years. I came from the banking world. I know how difficult it can be to try and get financing when you're under that 2-year threshold, if not impossible. So we certainly make it possible with our partners and the resources that we have. I encourage you to come and speak with us tonight, and if you have needs, come into our branches and see us. Another thing to tell your friends and family about is we do free credit score analysis. So I don't know if you've ever seen a person that's had their credit score raised from a 620 to a 700, but we're saving them hundreds of thousands of dollars, and they are ecstatic. We're consistently getting our members hugging us in branches. People are absolutely thrilled when they see their car rate drop from 16% to 3%. And those are true stories, and they're really happening in our branches every day. And it's really our employees who make the difference in our members' lives. So I encourage you again to please come and talk with us, come into one of our branches. If you are someone who thinks you could use a credit score analysis, we all don't have perfect credit, or at some point in our lives haven't. And it takes a little work to get there, but we'll be your partner in helping you all achieve that. So let's enjoy the speaker tonight, and thank you all for your time.
Thank you, Sarah. It's my pleasure to introduce the chair of our Able for Women Advisory Board, Diane Gibson. And Diane is the CEO, founder and CEO of a franchise national company called Craters and Freighters. And she has been part of the group that has inspired and supported and encouraged this center. And she's going to introduce our speaker tonight. So Diane.
It's just been a pleasure to work with the Women's College and with ABLE. I think what we're doing here, particularly for women that are looking to go into business, has just been the most rewarding thing that I've ever been involved with. And I thank Barbara for, as executive director, she has taken ABLE forward faster than we can keep up with her. And then I thank you for coming tonight to help us celebrate the Kaufman Foundation, which is one of the largest and most exclusive entrepreneurship centers in the world, is sponsoring Global Entrepreneurship Week. According to their motto, they have 1 week to change the world. So they're doing their best all over the world, and you guys are all a part of it, and we thank you for doing that. in that light, it's always a good day when I get to introduce somebody like Dr. Jana Matthews. Dr. Jana Matthews is one of the world's leading entrepreneurial experts. She's worked with teams, CEOs, executives worldwide in discovering and planning and resourcing for companies worldwide that to figure out what is impeding their path to growth, and her expertise is invaluable. Just to give you a little bit of an idea about what Jana has achieved in her life, she is one of the 18 women business gurus in the world. She's designed programs for organizations that support entrepreneurs, such as the Young Entrepreneurs Organization, the Young Presidents Organization, Women Presidents Organization, Innovate South Australia, Industry New Zealand, and the U.S.-Russia Center for Entrepreneurship. She's been a global thought leader for major corporations in the world like SAP. She served as a mentor. It's so appropriate that she's here tonight because she was one of the original founding members of the Kauffman Foundation. So it's nice that we can have you here on Kauffman's Global Entrepreneurship Week. She's the author of 7 books, 3 of which have been published in 13 different languages, Building the Awesome Organization, Lessons from the Edge, and Leading at the Speed of Growth. And I want her to talk to you a little bit about her latest innovation, which is an e-book on big, fast growth, and I'm sure that she's going to say a little more about that. I can attest to Jana's brilliance because Jana's been working with my 21-year-old organization that I thought was at its peak for about 1.5 years now. And Jana has helped us immensely change the culture of our corporation. She's helped us establish new missions, new visions, new goals, and the changes in my company are astounding. And it's just amazing to find the opportunity in a 21-year-old company that we've found since we've been working with Jana. So there's no greater pleasure than to introduce her to you and share her with this audience tonight. Dr. Matthews.
Microphone, so we decided I'd suit up afterwards. Good. Well, I'm really thrilled to be here. Part of my mission is helping entrepreneurs grow successful companies, and I love helping women grow successful companies. It was interesting when I did go to the Kauffman Foundation. I was in Boulder. Mr. Kauffman was still alive. He had made his money in pharmaceuticals. And decided that he would create a foundation to help entrepreneurs start and grow companies. He also was helping the kids in Kansas City go to college, stay off drugs, and so there were about 1,000 students that were benefiting from his philanthropy. But he said, what we're having problems with in our country is jobs. And if we don't have jobs, there's no choice and hope for the future. So who creates jobs? Well, he had a group of people, the head of Sprint and several other illustrious friends of his who were major corporate guys, and they went around, did their research, entrepreneurs doing research, came back and said, well, government's creating jobs, but really, who creates jobs? The companies. But it's really entrepreneurs who are creating jobs. So if we could figure out a way to help entrepreneurs start and grow companies, that would be a major boon. This is like 1988. Does this sound familiar? I think we've been here before, which gives me hope. We've been here before. So when Barbara and Diane asked if I would speak tonight, I very much was pleased to speak on the week that Kauffman has not only designated as the Entrepreneurship Week, but this is the Year of Women. So I want to talk about that and have some conversations about what's going on and what's happening in the world of women. I know she said that there was an electronic mouse, but I don't really know how to do this, so I guess I'll just be tethered here for a bit. Okay, so Diane's already talked about all this, and I've done. That was pretty fast. Must have been trigger happy. So I've done a lot of stuff, but you know, it's really important to remember, I grew up in a small town in Indiana. I went to the same high school with the same 25 people that I started with in kindergarten. I graduated from Richmond High School. I hadn't even taken the SATs or the ACTs. I went to Earlham College on a scholarship. My dad took me to the bank. I got to sign a loan because we didn't have enough money. I think he had $5,000 when he filled out the financial aid form. That was the income that year. I have been incredibly blessed by mentors, by women role models, by men who have supported me, by friends who came, my mother's friends who came forward and said, you know, unfortunately her daughter died in a bad automobile crash when she was a senior at Duke, and she said, I would have wanted my daughter to go to Europe. Here's $250 when I went to do my junior year abroad. I went to England with $250 spending money for a year. So all this is, you know, I look at this and I go, who is this sometimes? It's so amazing, this incredible life that I've had. So part of my mission is to help companies unlock their growth potential. And Diane's was a perfect company. It has enormous growth potential. It was really clear and easy for me to see that. But there were some things that she was not doing and some changes that she had to make. And I would wish that all of my clients were able to make the change that she has as rapidly. How she does things, how she leads, how she thinks about the business, how she relates to her franchise owners. And they have picked up the pace as well now that they see how she's leading. The values that I have are very similar to the ones that Mr. Kaufman had. Treat others as you want to be treated. Those who produce should share in the rewards. And it's your responsibility to give back to the community that enabled your success. My vision is to offer a whole integrated suite of programs to help people grow their companies. Very simple. And when I was at Kaufman, I was lucky enough to be able to have time and money. I went there, I said to my husband, I have to go to Kansas City. He said, we're in Boulder. We love Boulder. We have our own company. What are we doing in Kansas City? And I said, they're doing all the things I want to do, and they have the money to do it. So I was able to go there, design programs, help entrepreneurs, and actually do some research on what do you need to know to grow a company? How do you learn it? How could we package that? And how could we help more entrepreneurs be successful? So I've turned that into a whole set of things that I help individual companies, and then I do things which is one to many, which is what I'm doing tonight, which are presentations, and we have some DVDs and interactive websites that I'll talk about in a second. This is my view from my office. When I go to Australia or any of those places where people are in cities, I go, this is where I get my inspiration. I have written a whole series of books, and the last 3 are focused on growth. And it was amazing to go to China and find they'd already read the book before I even got there to teach. Pretty amazing. This is about what not to do. So these are stories told by the entrepreneurs themselves. They were willing to put their names and their little bios and what they did and did wrong. And then we told the meta lessons about what they did right and wrong as well. And this is about how to grow the organization to support your growth. And this was the new interactive book project that we've just launched earlier this month. So I'm going to take just a second and I'm going to show this to you because it's something that I want y'all to participate in. Okay, it's called Big Fast Growth, and you see Jeff Katz and me there, and I'll show you the video in a second. Jeff Katz and his brother were in Durango. And when he called, he said he just read that book, Leading at the Speed of Growth, and that's like it's written about us. And I said, yeah, that's what a lot of people tell me when they call. He said, do you work with companies? I said, yeah. Well, I think you better come and talk to my brother and me, because we're 30 people. We've hired about 60, but we've only had 30 that worked out. And we have this huge opportunity. We could really grow fast, but we don't know how to do it. We've never managed more than 10 people. So I went down, and it was just amazing to work with these 2 brothers. You know, one's older. You've always been like that. You were like that when you were a little boy. How come you can't just have one idea, keep one idea? How come you have to have all these ideas? Why can't we get one thing done? Are we ever going to be profitable? So they kind of shared the same long-term vision, but they didn't have the same short-term vision about what to do. Well, we got the vision squared away, we got them executing, we got a plan in place, we began to hire the right people, we weeded out the people that didn't fit their values, and all of a sudden they started to grow. Not only grow, they took off. 30 people to 300 in 3 years is pretty fast growth. They were bought by Silver Lake Private Equity a year and a half ago. They bought Skype, they bought Mercury Payment Systems, and they bought Groupon. So you kind of get a sense of how big Mercury Payment System is and how well they've done. So Jeff said, hi Jana, Merry Christmas last year. I said, hi Jeff, how's it going? He said, you need a new book. I said, I need a new book like a hole in the head. I've written 7 and it's brain damage. I don't think I can do it again. He said, well, you need to talk and help people understand how to do top line growth. Because all your books are really focused on bottom line. Get better people, be more profitable, be a better leader, get profit more quickly. But we got to talk about how to get more revenue. So I said, well, that's pretty interesting. Let me think about this. So what we've designed is an interactive website. And this is, when you come to the website, www.bigfastgrowth, this is what you'll see.
Hi, I'm Jana Matthews.
Hi, and I'm Jeff Katz.
And we're writing a book, a business book about go-to-market strategies. This is the first time that we know of that a book has been written interactively online. So we're posting content, and we want you to post your stories and your comments and your lessons learned.
You know, what's a little bit different is that usually these kind of books are written, not interactively, but are written either by an academic or an entrepreneur. In this case, it's both. Both Jana and I have that together. We have a pretty interesting, varied background there.
Jeff's a serial entrepreneur, and I have a doctorate from Harvard, worked with a lot of growth companies around the world. So we think we know what we're talking about, and we understand what your problems are. But we want you to participate with us, write stories, share your lessons learned. So hit the Start Here button, go to our first section, and help us write this book.
We're going to have a lot of fun, and we're going to learn lots as well.
Amen. Thanks.
So that's our little video, and this is the front page. So this is how it goes. Each week we feature a new section. Believe me, writing interesting content in 650 words that constitutes a section is the hardest writing I've done. You can also comment and share your experience with text or video. And then if you actually hit Start Here, you will then go to, this is now Chapter 1, Section 2. Section 1 was sort of an overview of what are your options when you're marketing. This is about now selling direct to customers, and we're doing social media and so on. Over here you can see just what I said to you before, what we're trying to do each week. And then here is the table of contents, where we're talking about here, honestly, Chapter 2 is honestly, how great is your idea? I mean, let's get really honest here, because if it's not a great idea, you can't really hope to have really big, fast growth. So how do you make your idea better? Chapter 3 is learning to play 4-dimensional chess, not just 2-dimensional, but 4-dimensional. Don't ready, fire, aim when you're picking channels. And this is create ties that bind. I think we got to put that something or other down. It's going to really irritate people. Maybe it's too close to me. Anyway, organizational changes to support your strategy, make your customers successful, managing up and down the channel chain, industry, thought leadership, and then finally sort of summary of the good and the bad and the ugly and everything you need to know about. You're choosing your right go-to-market strategy so you can grow big fast. And then if you want to have some gory stories that you don't want to put down here at the bottom, because here's where you comment. And we just took the old section off and put a new section. We had 17 comments from people around the world, India, China, Africa. They were all commenting, sharing their lessons learned that they had in terms of how to pick a good channel strategy. So you can also go to YouTube and do a video, and then we have, when the chapters are all done, they'll be posted up here. And now we only have the preface there, but you can read that, and there's about us and so forth. So this is sort of a new way for us to engage with our readers way before 2, 3, 4 years it takes to actually get a book out. And we're pretty excited about it, and we hope that you will participate, especially those of you who've had companies and who've actually grown them and have a lot to comment in terms of your big fast growth. Okay, so let's talk a little bit now about why I'm here and what I want to cover tonight. What is entrepreneurship and why is that so important? I'm going to make the case tonight why everybody in this room needs to be concerned about that. Jobs, we were talking about it in the late 80s. Now here we are 20 years later talking about this again. How do we create more? Diane mentioned I've been doing a lot of work in Australia. In fact, I've been there 4 times this year, and I'll be going back again next year. So there's some major lessons from Australia that I want to share. It's kind of fun to look at yourself from another country and to think somebody besides us has learned this stuff that we can learn from them. Vive la différence. Men entrepreneurs and women entrepreneurs. There's clearly a difference. Do we celebrate, or are there some issues that we need to be thinking about in terms of how we start and create companies? And then finally, how do we address what are the problems in more women entrepreneurs? How do we create the ecosystem, and how do we think globally but act locally? And so I have things that every single person in this room can go away and potentially do. So I have a sense of who's in the room. Students, how many students? Great, wonderful. Okay, how many actual for-profit entrepreneurs? Okay, super. How many social entrepreneurs, not-for-profit? Good, got some of those. And how many of you are serial entrepreneurs? You have the bug and you've done it over and over. Okay, I know. We can't quite get over it, can we? All right, so I want to give you some definitions about entrepreneurship because it helps you clarify in your mind what is this thing called entrepreneur. So if you're an economist, you look at somebody who's shifting resources out of a lower into higher productivity. So one of the examples I used when I was in New Zealand was you can cut down the trees and sell it for timber. You can cut down the trees and you can mill it and you can create this most amazing sculpture that you send over to Dubai and then they put in this huge hotel. And that's worth like $4,000 a square foot, or this is worth 40 cents a square foot. So which one is more valuable, and which should we keep in the country all the way through all those, instead of shipping the lumber on the boat and having Dubai make those wonderful ceilings of boats. So thinking about where to keep the economic resources and how to get the most out of them. Another is as an owner or a manager of a business enterprise that you make money because you take risk and you take initiative. You see that white space that nobody else can see and you go for it and you build a company around it. You see a client, a customer need. You know, we didn't all say, oh, we really need computers when Steve Jobs had this thing in his mind about what would really make life better. So they see the risk, they take the initiative, and they make it happen. This is more of the traditional definition, which is you change business norms, you engage in what's called kind of creative destructionism by introducing these new products, these new processes, these new services into the market. And that's typically what you're doing is introducing a new thing that replaces the old thing. And so getting used to this creative destructionism, it's okay to introduce something new. Well, if it puts them out of business, it's because they weren't paying attention. You know, the people who made the buggy whips when the automobiles came out, they had to go out of business because there were no more buggies. Well, they should have paid attention. The railroads should have paid attention when the automobiles came in. And what about the U.S. Postal Service, given internet? Duh. So they're practically bankrupt here, but we still are communicating, right? Just in a different way. So all those are examples. So we have different kinds of entrepreneurs. So when we talk about entrepreneurship, think carefully about which kind you're talking about and which kinds of programs that you're designing, because there'll be different programs for different groups, and I'll talk about that a little bit later, Barbara. So there's the necessity entrepreneur. Okay, so think of the mother in India or in Africa. Husband's left, husband's been killed, needs money. She's making beads, she's making things, she's borrowing money from the Grameen, micro-lending, sewing, you know, little stuffed animals that I bought my grandchildren and gave them for Christmas. So out of necessity, you have to do something. You're not expecting to make a huge profit, you're just expecting to make something so you can keep your family in food. The social entrepreneur wants to sort of improve and transform education, the environment, other social conditions. When I think of who started the Susan B. Komen breast cancer, I mean, what a movement, what an industry that's turned out to be. just amazing vision of how to get people together and give and publicize this and get on the American or U.S. airline when I'm coming back to United and their flight attendant in pink tie and I go like, well, that's colorful. And he said, don't you know it's breast cancer month? No, I didn't know. It's like the whole world has become so much more aware of this because of that particular entrepreneur whose sister had died of breast cancer, and she's going to make the whole world understand and contribute and get the research so that it happens to fewer women. Lifestyle entrepreneurs is what most people are, frankly. They create a business that satisfies a personal interest or a personal passion or a personal talent or some kind of knowledge that they have. So this is everything from the dog groomer to the Jana Matthews group. I'm a lifestyle entrepreneur. I have a passion to help entrepreneurs grow. It's very hard for me to scale myself. I can do DVDs, I can do programs, we can do webinars, but there's just sort of one of me unless I find a whole bunch of clones and train them, and I still may do that, but at this point I've just been sort of doing this as my own boutique consulting firm. So I'm technically a lifestyle entrepreneur. There's the growth entrepreneurs, and they're the ones I work with mostly, that are motivated to grow the business, bring in shareholders, and exit. And maybe they'll do it again, or maybe they'll do a philanthropy, or maybe they'll do who knows what, take a vacation. And then finally, the serial entrepreneurs. I know that sounds a little pejorative, but that's what we call them. They have this incredible tolerance for risk. Think Trump, right? Bankrupt, back again, bounces back again, casinos, goes out of business, buys this, goes out of business, buys Trump Towers, has to sell them, whatever. Risk, innovation, achievement, failure, recovery. This huge roller coaster. Being married to somebody like that is pretty amazing. But those are different categories of entrepreneurs, and they have different needs, and they have different ways that they can give back and support entrepreneurs. In every case, entrepreneurship is more than just starting a business. We're talking about where's the opportunity. So you three there in the law school thinking about starting your own law firm. So where's the opportunity? Is it women starting businesses? Is it older people that are doing trusts and wills? Is it family businesses themselves that are trying to pass on to the next generation? I mean, what are the trends which will enable you to see, or are you just going to be all things to all people? You have to think about that. You have to take risks. Probably have to go without salary for a little while until you get your client base, try this marketing, that marketing. You have to find resources. Barbara Brennan, some of you may know Barbara. Barbara Brennan and Bill Obermeyer and I are working with another couple people over in Australia on another company. And I said to Barbara this weekend, talk about a typical entrepreneur, using resources that they don't have. Here we have 4 very high-powered women. We're all working all weekend long on the business plan. I'm doing the spreadsheets, and there's somebody that's doing the marketing plan. We're like, we're not getting paid for this, but we're getting this amazing business plan put together that this entrepreneur's talked us into helping too. It's probably about a $20,000 weekend at least, which we did, of course, pro bono. And then creating something that customers value enough that they actually pay for it. Now, in the not-for-profit sector, it's that they actually use the services and value them. But at any rate, there's some value that's attached to what it is that you're doing. That's about entrepreneurship. We've built this country on that. When you think of all the entrepreneurs, the Vanderbilts and the Carnegies, yes, they maybe didn't start out so well, but they certainly created amazing things. And then what did they do with their money? They gave back. My husband grew up in a small town in Kansas. I grew up in a small town in Indiana. We both spent the whole summers at the Carnegie Library. Read. If he hadn't given back and created all those libraries all across the country, I think of all the kids that would never have had access to books and reading and knowledge. Well, we need them. We need more of them. And if you read the newspapers and listen to the media, we're counting on them and you to pull us out of this mess. And it is a mess. This next slide is based on data that a client of ours presented, and the client manages wealthy people's money. And this is no politics at all. This is just raw facts. So this is the debt and the GDP, which certainly doesn't show up very, very plainly, but it sort of goes like this, and it goes like this, and it goes like this. That is the gap that we have to fill. It is a huge gap. And we believe that we can fill it, but we have to be proactive in terms of things that we're going to do to fill it. And so I want to sort of draw some lessons from Australia, because I think sometimes if you look at somebody else and you see how they've done it, and then you look back at yourself, you get some lessons. It certainly happens when I worked with YO. They go in, have peer group discussions, hear each other's problems, troubles, help each other figure out what to do, and then go back and say, oh my gosh, that's happening in my company too. Woo! So, Australia, just in case you all don't know, China, India. Listen, when I did this thing in Indiana, nobody knew where Australia was, so I really had to tell them. Antarctica, New Zealand. I said to them, you know, in the next 5 years, go to 3 countries. That's not Illinois or California, another country. So, it's amazing, you know, only about 6% of the people have passports, so geography isn't getting taught as much anymore. So, okay, there it is. A friend of mine said, you know, when we were kids, and they said, if you dig down, you probably come to China. Dig down, I think you come to Australia. That's where it really is. We don't realize how big Australia is, but superimposed on the U.S., you know, pretty big country. Problem is, the U.S. has a lot of resources all across the country. Australia's resources are major cities. I work a lot in Adelaide. There's Melbourne, Sydney, Brisbane, Perth, and the Great Barrier Reef is up there where New England is. This country is practically desolate all the way from Nevada over to Ohio. There's nothing there except minerals underground. There's no people there. There's no trees there. So it's not like the U.S. that has this, you know, rolling plains and forest. So this whole country has 22 million people, which is the population of half of California. So pretty interesting for them to think what they're going to be doing as a country and what's their economic strategy. Now, they've actually been in existence about as long as we have, our country, except they were a colony sort of for the first 113 years, and they only became a country in 1901. But what do you find interesting about that map? Those are their 6 states. So 3 of the states are like east of the Mississippi. Those are all 3 states. And they are big in natural resources in those states, but hardly any people. And then the 3 states on this side are the more populated and more farming is done and where the financial services are. Canberra, the capital, is sort of up in here somewhere. And then Tasmania, a little island there. So it's a kind of a weird situation. They have a big country, but they have pockets of populations. And so when you think about company-wide or country-wide strategies, it sort of doesn't work there. You really have to be more localized. Well, they had the problem that we had with debt, incredible debt, and they fixed it somehow. They had 20 years of 3.3% average growth, which is pretty good. Not China, mind you, but then they don't have the numbers of people that are being born and coming into the workforce either, like China has. They also, you could say, well, weren't they all mostly British? You know, weren't they kind of homogeneous? Don't they all have the same, you know, ideas? Well, no, actually, there are citizens of 200 countries that are living there. Tremendous influx of other countries. In fact, they're actually asking for immigration because their population is getting older and they need people to be building companies and rejuvenating. They're the, you know, 3rd most technologically savvy, and 50% of the population owns stock. Hello, what's that all about? Well, they have 3 stock exchanges. They have, like ours, the big one, and then they have their equivalent of NASDAQ, and then they have this other thing that's called Australia's Small Stock Offering Board. And that's where companies get packaged up and they have to pass muster, and then they get placed on the board, and you and I go on the board and we look, and we look at them and we click through and do the offering memorandum and we see that we can buy packets of shares of 10,000 or 20,000 or 25,000 or whatever. And so we do, and it goes to a clearinghouse, and the clearinghouse clears it. We get the shares, they get the money after it's put in escrow until it reaches a certain point. For instance, if you're raising 300,000, they may escrow 200,000 because you can't really execute on the plan with less than that. So if you don't reach 200,000, the money is returned to the people. They don't keep it. They don't give it to the entrepreneur. Well, the companies I've worked with so far have been funded. They've had first and second round funding. They're going into third round funding now. They're expected to report just as a public company, expected to have an annual shareholder meeting, expected to report to their shareholders on a monthly basis. It's very cool. And it enables Main Street to actually invest in companies in a way that we don't have over here. So I actually love the plan. And that enables a lot of people to own stock in companies. Well, in case you're wondering, how are the banks, by the way? 4 of the 9 strongest banks in the world are there. No mortgage catastrophes. They said, we're not doing that. We're not doing those mortgage things, and we're not doing those swaps and all that kind of stuff. Their guy just stood up and said, I don't care what America's doing, we're not doing that. So according to people in Europe, the Australian system is one of the best regulated, run prudently, and so forth. I was walking by. It's been a long time since I've seen that. 6% interest on my savings account. Wouldn't you be better off inside, it says? Yeah, I'd be better off at 6%. And then The Economist, about 3 weeks ago, came out with a list of the world's most livable cities. So what do we have? Top of the list, Melbourne, Sydney, Perth, Adelaide, and then their little cousin, Auckland, also down under. So 5 of the 10 are down under. 3 are in Canada, 1's in Austria, and 1's in Finland. Nobody in the United States is on that list. So it's an interesting place. I love Adelaide. We're in an hour's drive with 3 of the most beautiful wine districts in the world. It's on water, there's the Adelaide Hills. Great people. Well, what saved them? How come they bounced back? Well, when you got that kind of natural resources, that helps, right? So they're kind of in an extractive and agricultural society, but their government knows that that's not going to last forever, and who knows whether the building boom in China is going to last. So they're trying to leverage off this to build this, which is entrepreneurship and innovation. So they are focusing on research. They've got great researchers coming out. They've got developing their talent in terms of entrepreneurs, and they're trying to get more capital into the system. And so they have government agencies called Innovate South Australia that bring people like me down to actually teach people how to grow companies. So what's going to save us? Well, obviously, that. It's just like we all know, when you've overspent your budget, you got to pull in the belt and not spend so much. So that's one thing we got to do. But there's more, and we've got to do more of every one of these things. We've got to have people who are willing to take risks and innovate. And in the old days, we had more startups per capita than Japan and than a lot of other countries, but that's not happening now. We aren't having the rest of the world is almost surpassing us in the sheer numbers of startups. More successful entrepreneurs. So we got to help people understand how to be successful. It's not good enough to have 1 out of every 80% of the companies fail in one out of 4 years. That's not good enough. It's bad for innovation, it's bad for them, it's bad for their families, it's bad for the economy. We also need startups that are kind of either own their market niche, if you will, or just grow big, like these homegrown Intel, Apple, Microsoft. All these are household names, and they've all grown relatively recently, certainly within my lifetime. But we need more women entrepreneurs growing companies. So let me show you what's going on with women versus men entrepreneurs. Let's take time to go through this. I sponsored a study with American Express that looked at data from 2004, and that study came out in about 2008. And this is more recent data from Kaufman. So if you look at the population, it's roughly even, right? Look at the workforce, still a few less women, 46% versus 54%. Look at the numbers of them starting companies. Now the 12% is where men and women both start the company, 50-50 or something like that. 29% of women, 59% of men. So 30% difference there in terms of from their own population. Okay, let's look at, do we just have our own company? I'm self-incorporated, I wash windows if I'm a guy, or I'm incorporated and I groom dogs, or I have my niece has children in, she takes care of a child care center, so she has her own incorporated company. So we have 14% of the women-owned businesses are actually employing anybody, compared to 22% of the men-owned businesses. But then if we get to year 3, revenues of 100,000 and more, 20% of the women, 33% of the men. Average revenue after year 3, $60,000 for women, $120,000 for men. Revenues over $1 million, 1.8% women, 6.3% men. That's what my data showed. So either Kaufman has bad data or we've got a regression. So they say, women have risen to the top in technology-oriented corporations. So the COO of Facebook is a woman. We could name a lot of women. Meg Whitman, Carla Fiorino. Anyway, we're women that are in technology companies. University hierarchies. The president of MIT is a woman. Of Harvard is a woman. We have more women in higher education now. But they're not as much in entrepreneurship. So why is that? Well, I think, and I think Kaufman thinks, because the knowledge that you need in order to be successful in a corporation or to be successful in a university, that's nothing to do with the knowledge that you need to start and grow a company. And we're not teaching people that. It's not enough to have business schools segment marketing, finance, all these things in semester courses. That's not how entrepreneurship works. At any one time, should I hire this person? What's my cash flow? What are the sales that are coming in to support that? What's the person's personality going to be vis-a-vis the other people in my team? How's it going to impact my culture? We're integrating all of that stuff all the time as entrepreneurs. And so we've got to figure out how to teach people in ways that they learn so that they're prepared to understand that you got stuff coming at you all the time that you're trying to figure out and balance. It's not like nice little neat compartments here. So I want to talk about what I see as like vive la différence. Well, let's talk about if it's working or not. And I'm going to make some observations in the next couple of slides that are my personal observations from having worked with a lot of women who own companies and a lot of men who own companies. I was the growth expert for the Women Presidents Organization and dealt a lot with their Platinum Group, which is 10 million and above, and did some research on them. And then my observation of the people that I've been working with, and again, these are sort of generalizations. I can point to particular people where it doesn't apply to, like one of these things wouldn't apply to Diane, or wouldn't apply to Sally, or wouldn't apply to Sarah. But in general, I think these apply. Okay? So the difference that I see between men and women entrepreneurs. One, women play by the rules. Men cut through the Gordian knot. Women think they have to know it before they talk about it. Men say, we'll make this up as we go along. Men call on connections. Women try to figure this out by themselves. Maybe they'll call a friend. Guys have connections in business. From school, from golf, from whatever. They have connections to call on. To use the example in some of the research at Kaufman was, so a man and woman both in university take their stuff to the technology transfer office. The woman's waiting. The man gets impatient, just calls his friend in industry. Men raise much more equity capital, much more. We're talking, like 90% or more of the equity capital goes to men. And we started looking at this at Kaufman in 95, 96, 97, and they go like, well, those are the ones that we see. It was like, well, those are the ones you see because you don't have any women venture capitalists. So I helped create the Kaufman Fellows program, which brought in more women in venture capital probably than any other thing that they did. We still aren't getting. So when we ask the women, they go, well, we just don't see very many. We don't see very many coming to us that are, prepared to taking the risk, see the opportunity, and kind of like, why is that? So women are better credit risks, frankly. So I still can remember when banks didn't want to loan women money, and when the Center for Business Research, I was on their advisory board, did the initial studies that showed that women paid back their bank loans better than men did, and then they started loaning to them, and it was a big deal in the early 90s. Set aside $1 million, Wells Fargo was the first, set aside $1 million loan fund for women-owned business. $1 million for the whole country. Okay, not too big a risk here. Okay, so men think bigger, and they take bigger risks, and they go down in bigger planes. Women think smaller, they go slower, and they protect the resources. But you know what's interesting? The men go down in planes, guess what the men venture capitalists say? Oh good, I know you won't make that mistake again. I'd rather have somebody who has gone down in planes, because they understand what it's like to go down in planes. So we were talking about a company that I'm working with, and we were talking about someone, and they had a couple things where they weren't successful, and I said, I love it, because that makes them be maybe more humble, like they don't know it all. So when we were recruiting people in the Kaufman Fellows program, we specifically asked, so tell us about a time when you had a failure. And this one lawyer from Boston never had any failures. No failures, no, everything has gone perfectly in your life, absolutely. You know, just, you know, he doesn't have, he just walks around with his little halo, I guess, and all these good things follow him. And I said to myself, this is going to be your first one then, because you are not getting into this program. We want somebody who has empathy, who's been there, who's had a failure, who understands what it's like as an entrepreneur with everything on the line to almost, you know, be going under, and to say either emotionally to be able to relate, or maybe even to come in and help make some suggestions. So women just don't take those big risks, and they're more into the protection of the asset stuff, okay? Men are a lot more self-focused. No, it's the customer, it's the deal that we're going to do, it's sorry, I've got to go. A friend of mine came over to the States with his family from Australia. They had this family vacation, but all of a sudden Microsoft called and he was off. And so there she was in Disneyland with the 2 kids in a foreign country. So she made it to her cousin in Las Vegas, and then her cousin went with her to New York, and he caught up with her in New York. And he doesn't understand why she still harbors kind of a grudge about that. And I said, so tell me, was that a successful deal with Microsoft? Well, actually, no. I said, so in the overall scheme of things, was that worth that sacrifice and that effort? He said, well, in the overall scheme of things, what I know now, no. But at the time, absolutely, I thought it was. Well, you know, his wife would have thought twice about that. We're more focused on other people's needs. You know, if I do this, what impact will it have on Chuck? My husband died about 18 months ago. And I know the whole last year, I was really much more thinking about, if I go on this trip, what's that going to do for him? Can I get my caregiver in place? And he's going to miss me, and he's getting more worried that I'll be gone when something happens to him. You know, I wasn't thinking about the business. I was thinking about his needs and my needs. So men want to win and succeed. Lynn talked about multiple responsibilities like balance, or maybe it's not altogether balance, but it's trade-offs. So first of all, big thing, the caregiving. I see this with my daughter. She has 3 little ones and an ice creamery and a husband who works an hour's drive each way, and I call him a kind of demanding husband myself, but I didn't pick him, so. So her company's growing 30% a year. She can't keep up with it. And she wants to slow it down. People love her ice cream. They're coming to her. I'm going like, oh, I'm dying. Please let me help you. Oh, I'm the mother. Yeah, I'm the mother. Anybody else can help her with the mother, right? She's got her children. She's got her stepbrother and sister and all their drama. She's got her father and what's going on with that. They've got the community responsibilities. She can't grow the business. There's no way. There's not another ounce of anything left in her. Okay, so my husband was great. He really was wonderful. He was incredibly supportive, fabulous guy. The household, are you kidding? He couldn't manage to have a paper bag. He couldn't screw in a light bulb. I had to manage all of the household. So that's not something I could give away unless I got a housekeeper. And then I'm leading the company on top of that. Oh, planning the vacations because I do it so much better than he does. So, how do we do this? How do we do this? Well, doing this is slowing us down in terms of growing the company. And so what happens also is that sort of likes attract. So people who want to grow company and be, razzle dazzle and go, 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 they go to those kind of companies. So men are attracting people like that. And we're kind of concerned about lifestyle, and you don't want to surround yourself with somebody Carolyn is not going to hire somebody who's going to be pushing her, because she's going to be incredibly uncomfortable about that. So she's going to hire somebody who's happy, at least until, the kids get farther along. My husband's daughter, who was the highest placed woman at Reebok at one point, stepped away from it all to raise 2 kids, and she said, as soon as they're out of high school and in college, I can start my life again. But this was my one chance to raise them. I have a responsibility to raise them. So figuring out how to make all that work is not a small, insignificant problem. So differences matter. If you step back and look at this from a macro perspective, 50% more men than women are creating, their companies are creating jobs. Men own business, MOB, mob. Maybe that is appropriate. 50% more achieving revenues of 100K, their revenues double, and 350% more of them are doing in the million and or above. So those are big numbers. You know, when we look at, we could just figure out to help women sort of do this a little more, just 10% increase, 20% increase, that would be huge, huge. So, I want to talk about, that's the macro picture. If those are what the issues are, then what can we do? How can we change the status quo? And my answer is, let's talk about the entrepreneurial ecosystem to support women entrepreneurs. Okay? So, there's a set of things that I think we can do, and then a set of things that I want to propose as the sort of top 10 actual activities, okay? So these are sort of macro. First, you got to involve the successful entrepreneurs and the serial entrepreneurs. So I really applaud you at ABLE and having someone, for instance, like Diane, who's chairing the advisory board. Diane has done it. She spent 21 years growing a company. She needs to be involved and engaged, and we need to tease out the knowledge out of her head. So get them involved, and from them, for those of you who are in the audience who are those people, you need to get committed in terms of your time and your talents and your money. Yeah, centers like this need money. You need to consciously build the system, and I'll tell you how. But you know, I've been in a lot of groups that have gone like, we need to do something. What do we need to do? We're not sure what we. Well, there are conscious things that you need to put in place. It's sort of like playing chess. We'll put the players out on the chessboard and help you understand what to do. Third thing is to go public, as in be willing to be interviewed, be willing to talk about your stories, share your knowledge, be role models. It's incredibly important that successful women be role models, that they mentor new entrepreneurs, and that they take their money and invest in women-owned businesses, because we're not getting much money. A lot of love from other places. I'm glad the credit union has its loan programs. Delighted that you're SBA certified and all those wonderful things, and I wish you had twice as much money to loan as you do. I bet you do too. Okay, second is create networks that support them. Now networks. Everybody's talking about networking. Well, I want to talk about the web of support for entrepreneurs. I don't just come into a group and wearing a name tag and having a glass of wine. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about actually creating peer groups. Entrepreneurs learn from other entrepreneurs. They actually learn more effectively from stories. They actually have a hard time with theory until they have a sort of a concrete experience in mind that they can begin to relate things to. So when you actually create peer groups that are talking about, this is an issue I have, this is a problem I have, and then they're solving it with each other, they're sharing their knowledge, and then you have somebody who's kind of an experienced faculty member, or I don't know what I am, I'm sort of both, I guess. You can say, this works in this situation because of this. If you tried it in this situation without that resource, it wouldn't be as successful. And actually, I thought the first time I did my first company that was the right thing, and the second time I tried it, I went down in flames. So let me tell you the real thing that you need to be thinking about in terms of the large frame around that issue. So you kind of facilitated peer group discussions is what I'm saying. You need a sort of an idea assessment lab where women can bring their ideas and can sort of say, what do you think of this? I don't know, maybe it's not a very good idea. I'm kind of afraid to tell anybody. I remember the first time I went to some program about starting a company. It was in the mid-'80s, I think, and I saw the chamber was doing one, and I thought, oh gosh, if I'm going to be the only one in the room. And I looked in the door and I saw 50 people. I went, I'm not the only one. So there's a sense of needing someplace to go where there's people going through the same thing you are, and the people will give you help and advice. And so someplace where you can talk about your ideas and have someone vet them, talk about them. This might work here, it might work there. I was having dinner with an entrepreneur in Australia, and he was going on and on and on about his technology, and I go like, you got a solution looking for a problem. Who's the market? Who's the target? Who wants to buy this? How many guys have developed all these technology things with all these bells and whistles that most of us don't want? So show me the money in terms of the market that's going to buy this. Give me evidence that somebody wants this. So I was his idea assessment lab at that dinner. Third is mentoring and mentees matching up. So have a situation. That's one of the things they do at Techstars. Is they bring a lot of mentors and they have some social, conversations. And so the Techstars founders and the teams are there and the mentors come in. And they have a chance to talk and they talk about the company and they kind of revolve around. And suddenly there's this kind of attraction. Then certain mentors are attracted to a certain business model and they go, I don't want to help you grow this. I think I can be helpful. I think I have contacts. So we need something like that, more on an informal basis. You need more angel investors, and so you need a way to engage those. Techstars type programs where people can come in for concentrated periods of time, like their program is 12 weeks. You live, sleep, eat, breathe, all the companies work together on their plan, and then they have a big demo day where they kind of, ta-da, here's my business plan, and hopefully they get investments. Well, a concentrated program like that, boot camp kind of program like that, is very cool. Also, a website and some apps that make it possible to find out where resources are in the community. And they did this in Kansas City, that Kaufman funded, and that may be something, Barbara, that you want to explore, because talk to Kate Hodel, I'll connect you with her. So Kate's done this, it's like Kansas City Resource or something like that, and it's a central place that you can go to. It's probably web-based, but it tells you if you're looking up who's doing education for angels, so-and-so course is going on at Rockhurst. If you're looking at who's doing such and such in terms of presentations for Springboard, so-and-so's doing that on such and such a date. So there's a great place to go and find easy information, and given all the apps that are around, you can be able to make it mobile. Okay, so the third thing is developing talent. So first is opportunity recognition. How do you see an opportunity? So I'll give you an example again from Australia. This guy, a researcher, developed technology that welds, and he was, he loved it, and it's really good technology. So my friend looked at that and he goes, well, this isn't just for like a guy welding in his shop on a Saturday morning. This is incredible. This welds really fast. In fact, if you think about all of the pipelines that they're laying out in Australia for oil and gas and so forth, the huge round pipes, like big heavy titanium or whatever they are, and it takes them maybe 20 hours to weld this. And those welders get a lot of money, so it's very expensive by the hour. This weld does it in 3 minutes. 3 minutes. And it's $19.57. It's like, whoa, is that a breakthrough technology or what? Now, would I have thought of applying into that market? No. And I wonder why didn't I think about that? But Philip did immediately. And so immediately we saw that there was a market and a target, and put together the company, and are packaging up. They've gone through the second round of financing and they're off. So figuring out how to help people get better at recognizing the opportunity there, encouraging women to commercialize their innovations as well once they've recognized them, teaching them how to grow a company, what are the skills that you need, and giving them crash courses in all of the parts of growing. And I could talk more about that during Q&A. And then continuing education all the time, more courses to entrepreneurs, to mentors, to angel investors, because you don't get it all at once. You get a certain amount of information, you go out and apply it, and then you're ready for sort of the next level of education, if you will. And speaking of education, the parts of starting and growing the company that we found were way under-resourced in business schools was risk assessment. How do I assess risk? And how do I understand how to mitigate risk and how to put things in place so that overall I'm willing to take the risk because I have all these other things in place. I think Diane's really good at that. Market focus, stay market, who is my market and how do I sell into it? What are the things that are required to build great organizations, culture and values and the right people and executive team and a plan and so forth? How do I finance growth? Who do I take money from and at which stages of growth? And how do I make sure this all fits together? And then how do I change my leadership role? Because as you go through and grow the company, there are 4 stages you go through and 12 different roles that you need to play. You're the same person, but you need to play a different role each time in order to take the company up to the next level. And people aren't born knowing this stuff, but they can all learn it. We proved that. Obviously then, also educating people to be a mentor and investor. So when I did the Kaufman Fellows program, which was the apprenticeship in venture capital, the idea was we take really bright MBAs, put them with a venture capital firm, with a mentor, one of the partners, and they would actually teach them the stuff. And then we had courses, they would come back compressed every quarter. We found out that those guys had no idea how to mentor. They'd like carry my bag, follow me around, sit in the meetings, and go pick it up. So there are actual things you can do to teach people to be better mentors than that. There's some stuff that corporations can do. They can do internships for students, summer jobs for faculty. They can do little contracts with startups. One of the very large companies in Australia actually is looking at the technology of one of the startup companies I'm working with, and they're looking at whether they can include it in one of their products. And if they're able to do that, create a whole new wonderful product, they're going to actually invest in that company. And they are doing some mentoring of that young CEO. So there are lots of ways corporations can also get involved with, whether it's men or women. And I call it government followership, because they've been, interesting, New Zealand and Australia are much more government driven in terms of the programs. You know, they'll give you 50% of your funds needed to take training in New Zealand to come into our 321 Go Global program, or they'll put in place a big government bureaucracy called Innovate South Australia, and then they'll offer courses to try to get people to come into them. So instead, what they've done in Boulder, and which I personally like a lot, which is to figure out what the entrepreneurs say they need, they go to the legislature, and then the legislature puts in place the policies and the laws and so forth necessary to grow this ecosystem. So when they found, for instance, in software, there's a whole big issue about visas, and suddenly we cut off all the visas for all the bright software engineers in all the other countries. They couldn't come here, they couldn't work here. It was really hurting our companies. So Brad Feld and some of the guys from Boulder, got on a plane, paid their own way, didn't hire a lobbyist. They themselves went out and lobbied for that, and it looks like the legislation is going to be introduced for the startup visa. All right, so if we're thinking those are global, large topics, 6 large things that we can do to create the ecosystem, then let's look at what we can do for women entrepreneurs. That's my center section. For women who might become entrepreneurs, students, people in corporations, women at home whose kids maybe are to the age now where they can think about something else besides caregiving, and then women mentors and angels. So some of those would be women who've been successful growing companies. Some of them maybe women who have money, have inherited money, or who've been part of a family business or have family money, whatever. Anyway, they're in a position they could mentor and become angel investors. So let me focus first on 10 possibilities helping women who are entrepreneurs. Well, first is what we call the meetups, the getting them to come together, forums, meetups, coffee clubs, host gatherings. You already did forums recently that I heard about. I do something called Dinners for 8 on the 8th of the month, and I bring together almost always CEOs. Half the time they don't know each other, sometimes they do know each other. And we come together and we don't talk politics or religion or anything. We talk about growing companies and what's involved and what are the problems they're facing, and maybe I'll have a company from Australia that'll be visiting and they'll talk about it, and other people give them advice. People have gone away actually transforming their business plans as a result of some of those conversations. So it's the collision of entrepreneurs with each other, with people they respect who can help them grow and think about their companies. Second is help women who are entrepreneurs by offering to serve on their advisory board. Diane didn't have an advisory board until last spring, and she's the first to say that it's really helped transform how she thinks and given her a larger set of people to talk with and share some of her concerns about, bounce ideas off of, instead of trying to figure all this out by herself. Do angel investing. One of the things that I was so amazed, I knew Brad Feld had invested personally, so he says, and I'll say to you, how many of you have invested in the company? Yeah, I invested one in '88. I'm still waiting for my money. I invested in a couple more, and I have some stock in some, so I'm hoping that it comes through a little sooner. Okay, so what, 5? How many of you invested in 5? 10? 20? 50? Brad Feld's invested in 75. 75. That's a lot. Not all of this very moment, but over time. And his point is, you've got to up the level of investing in them. And you know that some of them aren't going to turn out, but some of them are. And so out of maybe 10, just like the venture capitalists, maybe 4 don't amount to anything, a couple you get money back, and a couple are really high flyers. You can make a whole lot of money on them. But that's not the point. The point is that you're investing in helping grow the ecosystem. So think more about that. Now you have to get better at that. You know, he's pretty good at that. He's also a venture capitalist. But we can do that. We can accelerate the level of investing rather quickly, I think, with some education. And then mentor at least one. So take that as your to-do. Go, you know, you have to figure out how to pair people up, create situations where they meet and so forth. But the idea is go away and you find someone that can mentor, be a mentor. Okay, so that's to help women who are currently entrepreneurs. Let's focus on now the next list, helping women who are going to decide to start up and grow a company. So how about you invite a college student to come to your company for a day? Let her see what it's like. Let her shadow you. Sit in on meetings. Take her to lunch. Talk about why you started the company and what the problems were as you grew it, and give her the inside scoop. Show her the anatomy of a growth company. Maybe something will come of it, maybe something won't. If you do that one a month, each of you who are entrepreneurs, that's for, maybe you could do 6 a year, 8 a year. That'd be huge. That'd be wonderful. It takes no money at all. Just sign up sheet. Create internships in companies. Now, we had some internships. I had an intern who was working with me, helping me figure out whether to go to China or India. I decided I didn't want to go to either, but it was very interesting working with her and helping her think through how you would decide if a company should go global and what are the things you look at and what's the research that would be done. But it was also really important that her faculty member debrief her, because we started a program like this at Kaufman, and the interns were going out and then they came back together again maybe once a month and had lunch, and we're talking about what I'm seeing in terms of a company growing, and in terms of the CEO when he gets upset or when he's happy or sad, or you know what the issues are here, how you handle the emotional roller coaster of entrepreneurship and growth. And so if you need a faculty or someone to help debrief them, otherwise there's a lot of learning that doesn't make sense, that doesn't get integrated. A lot of experiences that don't get integrated into learning. And then case studies. When I was at Kaufman, there were 2 case studies taught at the Harvard Business School. One was Debbie Fields, whose husband did the company. That was the case study. And the other was of a woman who failed. So that's the role models that they were learning from. So I at least funded 6 case studies with the Center for Women Business Research wrote up, and then we sent around to business schools. So here at DU, you must have a lot of people, and you must have some case studies, but have more. Have a lot of case studies, and they don't have to be all written. They can be videos, all kinds of interesting things. We should have a channel, our own TV channel of women-owned companies. Maybe we can help Oprah get her channel off to a better start. I think it's not going as well as she thought it would. So another thing to do is invite women entrepreneurs to come in. So at the Harvard Business School, they have case study, they do and then they have the guy sit in the back of the room, he listens to the students talk about the case, and then he comes down and tell them what really happened. Well, I don't think they have very many women that do that. So let's have women that both have case studies, and secondly, then come to class. We could talk about any topic. We could talk about how we finance our company in the finance class. We could talk about marketing for the marketing curriculum. We could talk about personnel issues for the HR curriculum. We could talk about how we sell, or how we failed to sell, or how we hired the wrong salesperson in the marketing and sales. I mean, we could talk across the board in all the curriculum in business school, but have us in, have us speak as lectures. And if you have not a script, but a sort of an outline of points that you're trying to make with the students, so that we understand how to talk to the things that are going to make the most sense in the curriculum, that would be helpful too. We had, when I taught at the business school at the University of Auckland, I actually had student groups. They were all in the 30s. Those were my students, postgraduate diploma they were called. They were all working in corporations, just like yours, came in. And so I found 5 companies that we studied in terms of why they weren't growing. And had the students go out and they used some of our tools and stuff to assess. And then they came back, the CEOs in the back of the room, and I had a panel of the best CEOs of New Zealand up here in front. And so the student group got up and they had to talk about what they found and what the issues were and why the company wasn't growing, what their recommendations were about what the CEO could do. And in one case, they said, the problem is the culture. And one of our CEOs up here goes, that's not the problem. The problem is they don't have a plan. If you have a plan, that's what aligns people, pulls them together, that helps to create the culture in the company. Well, the CEO, you could tell who he was. He was as bright as my jacket. And so it was an incredible learning opportunity for everybody, all of them, including the CEOs up front, being reflected in some of the cases that the students were talking about, the CEOs, hearing the other 4 CEOs and what their problems and issues were. That's an easy one. You could do a course like that here as well. And then the point 9 and 10, courses to teach women to be good mentors to other women and to men too. You know, it's the same mentoring skills, but in this speech I'm particularly interested in the women. And there are ways to do that, certainly asking good questions, being a good listener, pointing out, do you want me to empathize, do you want to vent, or are we problem solving, understanding what's the purpose of the conversation, how can I be most helpful, and then following up if you promise to introduce them to people and whatever. Also teaching women to be good angel investors. You don't have to develop this curriculum alone. I was talking to people at Golden Seeds, and they would be thrilled to come and do a course here for you and teach you, in effect, what they've taught a lot of other women about how to invest and how to look at investments. And they also are helping prep women and get them ready to bring in as investor quality. So I think a partnership with them, and I'd be very happy to make that happen as well. Okay, so I talked about the big problem that we have, why I think women can help be part of the solution. We're going to have to change some of the dynamics in terms of how to help them become part of the solution. In other words, start more companies and grow more companies. That there are things for women, things for women who are thinking about becoming entrepreneurs, and things for successful women who are successful entrepreneurs or who are in a position to give back. So I want to close with one of my favorite quotes. And this is from Julius Caesar, Shakespeare. And if you forgive me, an English major, I'd like to read it. There's a tide in the affairs of men, or women, which, taken at the flood, leads on to fortune. Omitted, all the voyage of their life is bound in shallows and in miseries. On such a full sea are we now afloat. We must take the current when it serves, or lose our venture. This is our time. This is our tide. We're not confined to the hearth and home. We're not expected to be preservers. We've been empowered to take risks. We've been educated. We have role models. We are in a position to try things, to dare to build companies, to succeed, to fail, to learn, to succeed again. But also to remember our responsibility to help other women entrepreneurs. And I'll leave with a quote that's on the hearth at Earlham College, which is very near and dear to my heart. You gather sticks, kindle a fire, and keep it burning. We have a responsibility to the next generation. Thank you. I'm happy to take questions. I'm also conscious of your time. Please guide me here, Barbara. Here.
I would recommend we have time for a few minutes of questions, and then we'll.
Okay.
Thank you. That was wonderful. What resources realistically are available to women like me who have children who are just graduating college? I'm no longer encumbered by having to do 24-hour day support. But I have not been able to find a lot of resources in the community to help people like me who are already done with graduate school. Any suggestions?
So the question is, where do you find resources? Her kids now are graduating. She's ready. But where can she find the resources to help her decide how to start, grow a company?
I already have a business that I started.
Okay.
And we're staffing.
Okay.
So I need to know how to go to the next stage.
Barbara, I should have you answer this question because I am from Boulder and I travel all over the country.
Bring your microphone. I'm a noisy person. You're the poster child for what we're trying to do. So I'm the poster woman for what we're trying to do. And so we are. There's a set of events and resources which we're beginning to implement. Jana wrote the playbook on what our 2012 plan is going to be. So, and there's an envelope here that those of you who have money can fill out and contribute to ABLE. Those of you who have intelligence, expertise, passion, heart, mind, soul can contribute. So please fill this out and let us know who you are and what you'd like to do to be involved with it. But we want to meet your needs.
Yeah, I think everybody has this problem. Like I said, Kansas City has this resources, centralized resources where you can go in a central place. So Boulder doesn't have this either. And as they went through the Startup Colorado that they're focused on, one of the things they're going to try to do is map the ecosystem and identify where are the entrepreneurs, where are the investors, where are the mentors, and actually create a database and then make it easier electronically to meet as well as in person. So, I don't know, I would certainly think about whether Kaufman could fund something like that for you to do that.
We love that idea.
I just think her comment is really good because I think probably a lot of us are the same, but I have 5 companies. I think with the economy right now, it's really tough, and I think we're all looking for some leadership in the respect of we are leaders, but we're kind of stuck in a stagnant spot right now because of the economy and what's happened. It's pretty tough right now, no matter what your idea is and how to get in the marketplace. There are barriers, but it's unusually tough right now. And so I think we're looking for, whether it be getting together to talk, or something more than just whether we're helping fund something, or there's a tough,
There is a tough, and I emphasize, and yet I know people have grown. Diane has grown this year. Everybody that I work with has. So it's a different way of looking at it. It's shifting your market. It's taking another look at your product. It's, maybe we ought to have a. I hate it when I offer to do these things on the spot. Maybe there ought to be. Just say no. No, it's sort of what you really need is to sort of, like take a company to the doctor to figure out what's going on here. Yeah. So maybe there's a way we can figure that out. Maybe I can help you with that. One more question. Somebody in the back. I think you're the farthest back.
Am I the first back?
Yeah.
Okay, well, I know this is a question that will speak to a lot of people. I need angel investors. You've talked about them, you see that. How do I connect with them? And I mean, I don't need a whole lot of money. I could help, $1,500 would help. $20,000 would help even more. But how do I connect with those people?
Well, technically, angel investing isn't a $1,500 deal.
And Stacy, the
So.
other day, you said you needed $250,000. Ask for $250,000.
I need $250 to really get going.
But
Yeah,
ask
the
for that money,
1,500.
because this is the audience where you're gonna start to make those connections, so start big.
You're right. You're absolutely right.
Why didn't you ever do
Okay, well, you need it. So the first thing you have to do is that you're well packaged and prepared to go. So you really have a good plan. The market is, what the product is. You've already tested it. You've got sales. You can show me where you're going to go in the next 2 years, 3 years with this. You can show me how I get my money back. You can show me how much more money you're going to need, even if I give you money now. Even that VCs, invest and they sort of keep equal amount back because they know that you're going to need it later, expect you will need it later if you're successful. So if you have all of those things ready, then you just need the introductions. Well, in Adelaide, there's a South Australia angel group, but what is there here? Is there an angel group here? Is there really a group?
What I found is that there's a lot, and I've worked with Boulder Innovation Center for about 3 months, and it became pretty clear that their forte was either high tech or natural growth. And there was very little outside of that realm.
Okay. So I guess I'm seeing an opportunity. I'm seeing a white space in the market here.
I'm seeing a sort of plate that's got a bunch of holes in it, and there are some opportunities to fill the holes.
Okay. Well, unfortunately, because I live in Boulder, but I'm not of this whole community, I can't point you to people and introduce you to people. But I understand that you need that, and and Barbara, that's something that we've got to put on the agenda for you to address.
Yes, Gary?
I was down in Silicon Valley last week, and got turned down by 3 really large VCs, because I didn't ask for enough. You know, they wanted people to ask for 5 million or whatever. They all told me about the website called angel.co.
Okay.
And every single one of them told me the same thing.
Great.
Thank you.
Well, you know, you raise a point, which is what I said to you. You're not going to find people interested in angels in 1,500. So you have to ask for enough that they know that you can really build a company then.
You have to ask for a lot out there.
Well, they may not be the best place to go anymore.
Yes, one more.
So, I'm a woman I'm an undergrad, and I'm definitely at that stage of, I have a business idea, I've never done this before. But I'm in that category, I'm a marketing major. So how do I get the knowledge, the skill set that I need to become that entrepreneur? I mean, is that through Able? From my mentor?
Yeah.
Go call companies, go call companies in the industry that you want to be in and ask everything that you want.
A lot of them do that. I don't know, I'm sorry. I'm
No,
interrupting, but-
no,
Or
exactly.
come to the ABLE events called ABLE Experts, ABLE Connects, and meet the people who can, I mean, depending on your idea, you know, it may be this person or that person, but you need to begin to get into the ecosystem. Out of class and into the ecosystem, or in class and into the ecosystem.
So people will let you shadow. There are a lot of people that don't mind shadow at all. I've done it.
And do you have a business plan competition here?
You know, women are underrepresented in business plan competitions, and that's one of the things
they
that's on my
are.
list.
I know. I judged at CU, and the only woman was she was doing a brass band or something like that. It was a not-for-profit. We got to do better than this.
Yes, and so there isn't a business plan competition at DU, either in Daniels or here yet. And so we may partner with some other organization and funnel women into their business plan competitions to get started.
Okay. You want to know?
There's a lot of women here that really have, you know, if we do some brainstorming, there's a lot of people that have some knowledge in lots of different places, and a bunch of women wanted to get together and talk and you know.
So that is called ABLE Table Talk.
There you go.
You're the great straight man.
I am going to cut off questions. Jana will stay for a few minutes.
Oh, yes, I'll stay.
It does not get better than the opportunity to hear from Jana. So,
Thank you. Thank you.